The Cities Skylines 2 Economy 2.0 update has just been released, and it's a big one. In fact, its patch notes are 9 pages long. And while many of the changes included in the patch have been described in the 2 dev diaries that were released before the patch, there are some new surprises for us that haven't been discussed until now. So in this video, I want to touch on the most impactful new changes included with the patch notes. After that, we'll dive right into Magnolia County and migrate it into this Economy 2.0 world, which I will admit was much more involved than I initially imagined it would be. So stick around and I'll save you a ton of time and frustration if you plan on migrating your saves into this new build. And without any further ado, let's just jump right in. Like I mentioned a moment ago, the patch notes are 9 pages long. And as you can imagine, a lot of what's included is super specific bug fixes or things that we've already been told about. However, there are some brand new things, so I decided to group the most important changes into 5 categories. The first of which is taxes and specialized industries, and there have been some big changes here that I'm really excited about. The ability to adjust taxes and the ability to place specialized industries now unlocks much earlier than in the past. For specialized industries, livestock farming, grain farming, forestry, and stone mining are now available at the onset of the game, which is a huge improvement in my opinion. It means that you can build a community around these industries, which feels much more natural than we've been able to build a city in the past. Also, extractors have been rebalanced and their profitability greatly reduced. That was a huge problem in the previous version of the game. Taxes now unlock at milestone 1, which means that you'll be able to adjust them, which is really important now that we have a much more granular economy. And lastly, other specialized industries unlock earlier as well, such as coal, which now unlocks at milestone 1. All in all, these are fantastic changes that I was really hoping would make their way into the game. Number 2, balance improvements. Across the board, the number of city service employees has been increased. This means you'll have to have a larger population to be able to fill all the roles associated with these buildings, which is a change that I appreciate. In addition, service fees have been modified, especially for water, power importing, and garbage. For garbage in particular, it appears that basically the entire mechanic has been reworked and rebalanced. And this is a good thing because there were a lot of buildings that were not producing garbage, a lot of people that were not producing garbage, and it appears that the simulation was overly complex. And finally, the cost of demolishing roads and buildings has been increased, which will make you think more about redoing your city. Now, the next category is a little bit strange, but bear with me, it's going to make sense in a second. Bugs that made you feel like you were going crazy have been fixed. So this is kind of my catch-all category for crazy bugs. So kids living alone will now move away. Newly spawned industries will no longer complain about not having enough employees. Specialized industries' main buildings will no longer disappear when you place them for the first time. Signature buildings that did not ever get occupied will now be occupied, although you will need to delete and replace the building for that to happen. Vehicles will no longer use parking lots and transit stations as cut-throughs. That also means no more traffic jams in parking lots. Planes will no longer drive through a runway without the intention of landing. Mail will no longer get stuck at a cargo terminal. Hospitals and clinics will finally refill their pharmaceuticals. Tourism bugs that have completely destroyed tourism industries have been addressed. And finally, fewer senior citizens will move into your city, and their life cycle curve has been adjusted to smooth senior citizen death rates. Now, this is going to cause a massive death wave when you load into your city, but we'll talk about that more a little bit later on. Number 4, quality of life improvements. Now, for someone who likes landscaping as much as me, I'm really excited to see that the collision radius for some trees has been improved so you can get bushes closer to them and get the trees closer to one another. The North American and European theme icons have been improved, but the big change is that now you can select both of them at the same time, so you can see all of your zoning options or all of your landscaping options at the same time. Next, a mod loading error that you normally see on the main menu that would just sit there indefinitely has been improved to show you what mod is giving you the error. And the great thing is, if you click on the mod's name, it'll give you the option to disable that mod so you can still load into your save with mods enabled. And finally, even though this patch wasn't supposed to address performance, performance has been improved. Now, I'll be honest with you and say I haven't really been able to look at this in a very quantitative way, but one thing that I have noticed is that the FPS drops that I would experience when moving complex buildings such as the university have gone away. And this is one of the things that they specifically said would improve as a part of this patch. And number 5, the map tile mechanic has been significantly overhauled. First of all, they've increased the fees associated with purchasing map tiles. And this is a welcome change in my opinion. I always thought it was way too cheap to purchase a map tile. Second, a bug where fees could change depending on the order in which you purchase map tiles has been fixed. I didn't even know it was a thing, but I'm glad to see that it's been resolved. Third, and probably most controversial, Upkeep has been added for map tiles outside of your starting 9 tiles. This is completely new, and I was very surprised to see this added to the game. I have a feeling that people who have problems loading into their save are going to have problems because of Upkeep, but we'll touch on that in just a moment. They have given you a way to bypass Upkeep, and it's by unlocking all map tiles. This is now an option that you can enable when you load into a save or when you begin a new build. This will disable achievements and remove all tile upkeep while unlocking all 529 tiles. Now, bluntly, most of our city fixing is going to deal with this category, so we're going to talk about it a lot when we load into Magnolia County. But before we do that, there are a few known issues with this patch that we're going to want to keep in mind. First of all, while that pharmaceutical storage bug has been fixed, it can take a long time to see it reflected in the game. You might just want to delete clinics and hospitals if you want to see this change take effect a little bit faster. Second, water service fees have been adjusted, and as a result, the default budget has been restored. So if you adjusted your budget up or down, you're going to want to make that change right away because it will be the default option. Third, existing saves will experience a 1 to 2 month long death wave due to the adjustments associated with the death rate curve for senior citizens. So everyone's going to have to deal with that. And finally, if you have a cargo train terminal or a crematorium of the sub-building, they will now show as not connected to roads. You'll just need to relocate them or place them on a road, and that warning will go away. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to this patch, so if you're interested in seeing everything, I'll leave a link in the pinned comment to the full patch notes. But I'd rather switch gears and dive right into Magnolia County and try to fix it. So let's do that right now. We're going to kick things off with the game on pause, and the main reason for that is the moment that we resume this, we're going to see a whole bunch of changes. We'll see that death wave, we're going to see a number of these icons disappear, our population's going to change, and our overall tax collections are going to be modified as well. So before we do any of that, I want to baseline things so we can see where we're at now. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that it's currently February at about 6 a.m. We are going to be simulating 3 months. This is a month beyond that 2 months that our death wave could occur in. And our population right now is about 47,000. Looking into our budget, I'm going to ignore this for now because I want to adjust our tax rates to something that I think is probably good enough to spur growth across the board. So what I think we'll do is adjust these all to 10%, and then we'll take a look at where our collections are at. And you can see that this basically gives us a perfect equilibrium. We have $26,000 per month that we are taking in. I fully expect this to dramatically change as we run this. The other thing that I wanted to point out is the mod list that I currently have running. We currently have a fairly lean mod list. Only toggle overlays and plop the growables are enabled. The main reason for these two is plop the growables will allow me to keep some of the buildings that I've plopped, and toggle overlays makes it easier for me to edit these videos along with my editor. We will be adding a couple of mods into the build in a little bit, but for now, we should be able to go with this fairly lean mod list and see how things turn out. So without any further ado, let's get this thing simulating. Just like that, about 3 months have gone by. Now, in real time, this was about an hour and 20 minutes for me on 3 times speed, so this was a lengthy process. All that said, a couple of observations. It seems like the death wave ended after about a month and a half, and the budget stabilized after about 2 months. So I think that the 3 months that we let this go was probably about a month longer than it had to go, but it's good to know. Anyway, let's try to fix this. And one thing I want to point out right away is that our tile upkeep is almost the same as our tax revenues. Now, I've done a lot of experimenting with this. You can go into your taxation and try to boost things up. And no matter what you do with boosting taxes or turning off city service buildings, you are never going to end up in a spot where you can maintain the tile upkeep if you've made the mistake that I've made. Now, this mistake is I've unlocked a whole bunch of unproductive tiles. Now, I did this in a variety of circumstances. An episode ago in Magnolia County, for instance, I unlocked all of these tiles right here to draw in this train line that isn't actually doing anything. On the other side of the map, I unlocked a whole bunch of tiles to have this rural back road. Now, for all these tiles right here that aren't productive, the ocean tiles that I've unlocked, we are paying an upkeep cost for all of those. And the cost is so high that there's no way to balance the budget. You'll know that this is the case if your upkeep looks very similar to your tax collections. Imagine trying to balance this budget. The only thing that we could really do would be to basically turn off every city service building. However, all of our citizens will leave. So at that point, you might wonder, how do we fix this? Well, there's a vanilla way that you can fix this. You could decide to load a game. We'll go into the save that we have and we'll go under map options, and you can now select unlock map tiles. This will unlock all 529 map tiles and it will disable the tile upkeep. So let's check that out right now. And you can see immediately we are in the green before we even hit unpause. And this will be the case for basically the rest of the build. This is an unfortunate situation in my opinion, because reasonably the economy will be very easy without the tile upkeep. I do think the tile upkeep is necessary to make the game challenging. Now, a benefit that you will still have is that the taxation is still very responsive. So if you were to go ahead and say, I want to attract furniture industries, I've noticed that adding a subsidy or reducing taxes will indeed attract that industry to your community now with this update, which is something I didn't really feel in the past. But if you're looking for a challenge, you will not have it without the tile upkeep, and you will lose the ability to unlock tiles, which is a mechanic I really like. And now if you hadn't used mods in the past, you will have achievements disabled on your build. So this is not an ideal solution. I really think that all the tiles should have been locked and you'd have to select all the tiles that you've built in, but that's not what we've received. So the second vanilla option is to begin a new city. Now that is not a great option, and it's not an option that I have personally pursued, but I am going to speed run building a new city on a stream soon just to see how the progression mechanics feel. Now, if you're not afraid of using mods, there are a couple of options that I have for you that will help you bring your city back to life, still have tile upkeep, and have that challenge that we've all been craving. Now, if you're okay diving into the world of modding, there are a couple of mods that will help you bring your save into the Economy 2.0 world. The first is the 529 tiles mod, and I do have a local version here because this hasn't been released yet, but I have been told by Algernon that this will be available at the time of the release of this patch, which is why I want to show it to you now. There are two ways that the 529 tiles mod can help you overcome the tile upkeep issue. The first way is to relock all the tiles and then only unlock the tiles that you actually have built in. So we are going to select this option right here, and then we will go back and load into our save. And now immediately you'll see that we are making money. And the main reason for that is we currently own no tiles. So I'm going to pause it, and then we have to buy all of our tiles again. And you can see that we have 335 tiles available to us. So let's select this option right here, and then I'm going to basically unlock every tile that we've built something in. And I've gone a little bit conservative here, and I have 130 tiles selected. This would give us a monthly tile upkeep of about $5.4 million, which is about half of what we had before. So we'll purchase these tiles, and now we'll see that we are once again in the negative. But this time we are $135,000 per hour in the negative, which should be much easier to overcome. So the first thing that I would do to handle this is to obviously adjust our tax rates. We're currently at about 10%, and I bet you that we could handle something like 13. And right away, you can see that this has dramatically improved our budget situation. We're a little under $600,000 per month in the hole, which should be fairly easy to fix. Knowing that fire spreading is not as big of a trouble in this version of the game, I would probably disable this building. This fire station costs about $1 million per month in upkeep, and disabling it will considerably close that gap for us. And bluntly, I think that our city will be fine without it. And by slightly raising taxes and disabling other city services, I think that we could have our budget balanced in short order. But ultimately, the main benefit of using the mod in this way is that you can now save the game with these tiles unlocked and then get rid of this mod from your mod set and have a vanilla playthrough once again if you choose to do so. Now, the second way that you could use the 529 tiles mod to fix your tile upkeep is actually by modifying the tile upkeep modifier. So I've loaded back into the save and we have that massive deficit once again. If we go into our options menu and look at the 529 tiles mod while in game, we can now adjust our tile upkeep modifier. So let's say we adjust that to about 50%. That should give us an upkeep of about $5 million per month, which is what we had when we relocked all of those extra tiles. And this is something that we know that we can overcome with some taxation changes and disabling a couple of buildings. So it's a kind of a horse apiece, but with this particular method, you have to keep this mod in your playset forever. So either way is going to work just fine for you, but keep in mind that is the major difference. The benefit you have here is that all those tiles that you unlocked, you get to keep them unlocked. And then the final solution will be looking at hard mode. And if you were to take this to easy mode, and I know it seems like a bit of a contradiction, if you take this to easy mode, you will see that your tile upkeep once again is dramatically reduced. Now I did reset everything in 529 tiles, and you can see that our tile upkeep is now about $5 million, which is about what it was when we relocked all the tiles and only unlocked the tiles that we wanted. Your mileage may vary, but it is an option that you can use if you are okay having mods in your build. Ultimately though, it seems like for most people, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to get your build running than you might have believed it to be, but it's not completely insurmountable. You will need to dabble in mods though if you've unlocked a whole bunch of tiles. If you've been really judicious with your tile purchases, this stuff probably is not going to be a problem for you. You might be able to balance your budget. It just all depends on how built up your city is. If you have a large sprawling rural build, I assume that it will likely be a little bit more problematic for you to balance your budget. But then again, it's really difficult to say. Every city is going to be a little bit different. I am very curious to know though how your cities are coming out of this. So please drop a comment below letting me know if you were able to load in and balance your budget, or if you had to use mods to make it work for you. And I really hope that you found this video to be helpful. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I want to thank you so much for your time today. There's a million things you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me and go over the patch notes and figure out how to resuscitate your saves, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.